Beastmen are good and fun, at least in multiplayer. Campaign's an entirely different story, but at least in multiplayer you can definitely make good use of Beastmen. A lot of people will poo-poo on them, but here I've got a replay from Way. He's going to get started. I believe this is a tournament game, actually. He's up against some Skaven here, and since we're about to get into it, let's quickly go over the builds. 4 Centaurs, 4 Ungor Spearman Herd, 2 Spawn, Morgar, of course, Sad Morgar, and 3 Ungor Raiders, along with a Manticore Summoner. A bunch of Gore Herds also in Vanguard with some Doggos as well. For the Skaven, about to get crumped, we've got the Skaven Slaves, of course. Some Plague Monks here. We've got the Regiment of Renown, Council Guards, 2 Hell Pits, so plenty of Monster Mash, plus Plague Priest. So yeah, going all in on the single entities. Clan Rat Spears protecting the back. And Deathmaster Snitch leading the way. So yeah, Beastmen, right off the bat, these Centaurs are going to come in, make a quick charge, and then probably overrun into the second line here. One thing I love about Beastmen is their speed. They're one of the fastest factions, if not the fastest faction on average in terms of their units. And thus, if you have the micro to pull it off, they can be very fun and rewarding to play. Here, this is going to be a rough time for these Ungor Spearmen. Plague Monks are going to come in, just rip them to shreds, not to mention they've got the Terror. They're being drained out by the Plague Priest here, but one thing to note, I don't often slow down, but I do want to make note of one specific thing here. The Beastmen being in such a diffuse situation, like having units just all over the place, not overly blobbed up, means this Plague Priest isn't actually generating that much drain value, at least right now. And here comes Morgar. Nope, actually nope, doesn't want to fight Snitch. That's fine. Just draw him out of position. Snitch suddenly realizes, hello, sir. He's going to come in and try and get the job done. Morgar, relatively tanky, should be able to hold out, especially getting knocked around by the Hell Pit. But the Centaur is just overrunning in the back line. These Gore Herds also come through and just absolutely clean up shop on these Clan Rat Spears. The Wolf Rats with Poison do beat the Doggos out in the periphery, but that may not end up mattering too much. The Summons are active. That is probably the biggest strength of the Beastmen. I might put them as the top summoning faction, even over Undead and Skaven, just given the fact I would need to actually, add it up, mathematically write it out in terms of how much value you can potentially summon gold-wise in a game. I want to say the Beastmen, because you can get reliably 2 spawns. You used to be able to get 2 Manticores and 2 Cygors if you really played your cards right. It was usually better to get 2 Manticores, 1 Cygor. Now, because the Manticore is much more expensive in terms of Winds of Magic, it's a bit tougher. But at the very least, 2 spawns plus 1 to 2, maybe up to 3 single entity monsters, whether that be Cygors or Manticores. Quite strong. Summon Manticore here is going to be shattered, unfortunately. Just got very beat up by the Hell Pit Abominations, but Morgar manages to squeak away there, and of course, there's always another one. Meanwhile, over here, the Spawn, Beastmen Spawn, also having high weapon strength plus poison, makes them an excellent tar pit, and they actually deal pretty good damage to the Hell Pits. Not to mention they are also debuffing the Hell Pits damage, and oh no! Oh, Snitch! Snitch forgot that he dies to a Manticore charge, potentially, so he's gonna nope out of there. Morgar then follows up, along with the Caster, and although this might not be a great fight for Morgar on paper, ooh, the Manticore scoots in, just massacring poor Snitch there. Snitch very likely to get terrified here. Nice little timely rear charge from these Centaurs as well. Yeah, the Spawn and other things just holding. Council Guard, really their stats are very garbage for how expensive they cost. So they're just going to get worn down by the Gore Herds over time. Plague Monks here do come back. They might be able to get a little bit of damage, but it's going to be a pretty quick victory for the Beastmen, given the type of build they brought here. I mean, the Hell Pits, I said in my recent Hydra video that, not even necessarily, armored single entities the Beastmen have problems with. It's more so tanky single entities that Beastmen have problem with, but at the same time, in a situation like this, you've got these 2 tanky single entities left, the rest of the army's gone, probably just going to lose out on leadership anyway, and even then, Hell Pit Abominations are in some ways tanky, but in some ways also not. There they go. Snitch gets shattered, and that's army losses. So yeah, Beastmen, honestly, I really don't think they're as weak as most people think they are in multiplayer. Especially with the right micro, the right deployment and circumstance. Granted, there were no mortars in this build, which is definitely a mistake. You'd always want to bring mortars because they're ridiculously overpowered. And my recent comments about Skaven being maybe not a top 5 missile faction, I kind of dismiss mortars mostly from that equation because they're so egregious. I expect them to be heavily nerfed in upcoming patches, hopefully. If not, I'm going to throw a fit, so better get on it, CA. But anyway, yeah, in terms of my army value here, back to this actual battle, or not my army value, rather, but Wei's army value here. I've just adopted it as my own because I love it. Gorherds, one of them only paid for themselves, but all very healthy. Lots of kills, just cleaning up lots of numbers here. The Raiders helping to contribute against the monsters. The Centaurs, though, definitely unsung heroes. Not only lots of value in terms of numbers killed, but also timely rear charges, leadership penalties and so on. Spawns also generated great value, bogging down and doing damage to these hell pits. Yeah, hounds are just kind of here. Morgar also with the spawn summons, obviously, and the summons from the Manticore dude was all quite good. And if you like playing that kind of all-out rush, Beastmen do have some things to offer you, for sure. If you like playing like a very hit-and-run mobile style, even kiting to a degree, yeah, Beastmen can play into all those kind of different archetypes. And really, like I said, because of the speed and the fact that they also, broadly as a faction, is kind of similar to Wood Elves, they don't suffer any forest penalties. I don't think they get bonuses in the same way that Wood Elves do, but like even the Beastmen, Giant, and Spawn, for example, compared to their counterparts on other factions, have this no forest penalty trait from Woodsmen, right? So that in and of itself, as well as the speed, the kind of wide variety of Vanguard units you can take as well, you can really utilize the terrain to your advantage in a way that not many other factions can. Again, the Wood Elves are in a sort of similar position, but they really can't bring the same numbers to the table that you can in that all-out Vanguard. Greenskins can kind of do a similar thing, but again, they're not quite as fast as, I don't know. I don't know what the right word I'm looking for, as wild, I guess. That seems kind of cliche, but anyway, the Beastmen, the biggest issue they have is really in the monster department, and I'm really hoping that one more DLC that Creative Assembly has promised for Total War Warhammer 2 is about the Beastmen. They really just need to add a couple of monsters like the Gorgon, the Jabberslythe. That would really bring the Beastmen up to the level where you would expect their monster play to be at, and at that point, as a faction, they're relatively complete. And I think they'd probably still, I mean, they're strong right now in the right circumstance, but it would definitely help them in a lot of their bad matchups. More character variety as well, more generic lord types, more hero types, all of that, just more variety in general would open up different play styles and sort of help augment them in situations where they currently struggle, which is, again, primarily against like very tanky single entities. Hell pits can sometimes fall into that, but at the same time, Skaven sometimes have a hard time against the kind of blitz of the Beastmen because they're very fast, and Skaven actually as a faction are not that fast. Of course, they recently got some very fast units added, but if you kind of discount these two, the rest of their roster is relatively slow. The Beastmen can kind of use that to their advantage and really get those isolated kind of favorable engagements. Beastmen never fight fair, right? That's really what they're all about. And so you should keep that in mind when you're playing as them. Definitely utilize forests and hiding to your advantage, even like hiding behind slopes and ridges, vanguards. On that map, for example, like being able to vanguard a full line behind your opponent to immediately have a full surround as soon as the battle starts. Like, that's another advantage that Beastmen have. And a lot of these units, like Gorherds, for example, great weapon strength and attack stats, good charge as well. And Primal Fury makes them even faster. So there is all those things to consider. In terms of what else I would like to see change, Minotaurs are just too expensive. They've always been too expensive for how squishy they are. I mean, aside from when they were like completely broken when Beastmen first came out way back in Warhammer 1. But I mean, just in general, 35 armor only and no missile block chance, relatively low HP for a monstrous infantry unit this expensive. I think these guys could be like 1,000 maybe, like 950 even, and you'd still probably want to take spawn most of the time just because they're unbreakable and have poison. So that's one change, besides adding new stuff, that I think would really help Beastmen. It would just be to rework Minotaurs. You don't want to necessarily decrease their cost too much. Maybe 950 would be too much. Maybe like 1050 or 1100 would be better. But also, I think an HP increase just to make them actually last in combat. Because right now, they just, I mean, your 1350 Minotaurs with great weapons will just die horribly to like a low tier spear, which feels bad. You know, only 32 melee defense and 35 armor. That's why I like the shielded Minotaurs, but even then, I mean, it gives you a bit more armor and a missile block chance, which is great. Same weapon strength, lower charge, but better melee defense as well. And just as a result of the better defensive stats, generally the Minotaurs with shields are a little bit better. But I'm rambling a bit at this point. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.